I'd just like to start off by asking you a little bit. When Kennedy said that we will go to the moon, where were you and what were you thinking when you heard that?
When Kennedy announced the space program, I was a young lieutenant in Fighter Interceptor Squadron at Ramstein, Germany. And when he made that announcement, we all actually laughed at him. We had 15 minutes in space, Alan Shepard up and down, and he's committing us to go to the moon in 8.5 years. Hoo-ha, yeah, sure. But looking back now, the most amazing thing about it, 8 years and 2 months after he made that announcement, we landed Neil Armstrong on the moon.
And what was the process for that? Did you apply or they recruit you? How did that happen?
Everything in the space program is volunteer. I mean, you volunteer to be an astronaut. I graduated from test pilot school in 1965. After I graduated from test pilot school, I realized the best job you could have is being an astronaut. And so being active military, I had to find, I just couldn't call NASA and say, hey, I volunteered. I had to go through channels through the military. We moved to Houston and started my career.
Let's talk a minute about Apollo 11. I'm not sure everybody knows that you had a role in 11. Everybody knows you walked on the moon for 16, but talk a little bit about 11 and how you got to be involved and maybe just walk us through what you did on that very historic day.
We trained just very diligently. We tied the simulator to the mission control and we trained together. It was like a real mission, and we did over and over and over again these landings. And we had a team in mission control called Sim Soup, and their job was to kill the crew if they could and make you screw up in mission control. But you learned from that. We made a lot of mistakes, but you learned, hey, we're not gonna make that mistake again. And so we were well trained, and yet even with that, we had a tremendous tension in the landings as we were trying to get there for the very first time. As we started down, we started having these problems, communication problems, then we had computer problems, and then we had trajectory problems. And so by the time we got down to the actual landing attempt, the tension was just out the roof with all of these problems. And so due to the trajectory problem, we were running out of gas. We called 60 seconds, meant they had 60 seconds to land. Then we called 30 seconds to land, and we were gonna call an abort. And 13 seconds later, I heard Buzz Aldrin say, contact, engine stop, and we knew they were on the ground. And a great sigh of relief. And Neil Armstrong just seemed like an eternity, but just several seconds later, he came back with his calm voice, says, Houston, Tranquility Base here, the Eagle is landed. But I was so excited, though I couldn't even pronounce Tranquility, it came out twang. Roger twang, I corrected myself. Tranquility, we copy you on the ground, you got a bunch of guys about to turn blue, we're breathing again, thanks a lot.
Jump ahead to 1972, Apollo 16, you're on the launching pad, knowing that they're doing the countdown. What's that like? What's your feeling? What are you thinking?
Intense excitement. You finally got your chance. You're sitting laying in this spacecraft ready to go. We had trained for 2 years and we were ready to go. As you start the engine, the vehicle begins to vibrate from side to side. And that got your attention because I didn't remember anybody telling me it was supposed to vibrate. But then you felt yourself start to move and I'm on my way. I got my chance. Keep going, keep going. It's a feeling of intense excitement, but a little anxiety because of the vehicle is really shaking and you're not sure this is really what it's supposed to do this much. But everybody says you go and the trajectories go, and we just kept shaking and it slowly accelerated. Apollo Saturn vehicle weighed 6.5 million pounds at liftoff. And we had 5 engines producing 7.5 million pounds of thrust, so it was very slow liftoff. But the engine thrust actually increases as you get to altitude. and you're burning your fuel, so you're accelerating very rapidly. And by the end of the first stage, you're 2 minutes and 40 seconds into the flight, probably 8,000 miles an hour, 35 miles altitude, and they shut the engines down. And you go from 4.5 G's acceleration to 0 like that. So it's like being in a big train wreck. You want to be thrown out of your seat. But the vibration stops, the second stage lights off, and it's smooth as glass from then. But it was exciting that first 2.5 minutes.